today we go onto our smartphone devices or online, we click a button, literally what we want to consume, we can click, it gets delivered to us pretty much immediately, and that's how we think about life. And you know, at the same time, my experience with the financial services industry is that we're largely organized in a very product-centric, siloed approach. We're not organized to think about experiences. You know, and this is one of the key themes I think we all need to think about here is how do we transition from this product-centric approach to an experience-centric approach. So here you have our protagonist who is representing big tech. All of us, I would hazard a guess, every single person in this room would have a relationship with at least one large technology company, would interact with that technology company at least once a day. So we're all customers of these technology companies. And these technology companies have a massive amount of data on us. So with that, I'm going to invite my panelists up to join me. Let me open up the discussion very quickly. I talk about this concept of the moving from a product mindset to an experience mindset. I mean, how do you think about that, Brett? And how do you think about it in the context of what we're doing here?
So ultimately, what we've seen over the last 10, 20 years, particularly since the internet came about, is there's this lowering of friction. You know, customer experience, we hear a lot of discussion about that. But in order to make things more efficient, give people access to financial services, as we lower the friction and improve the customer experience, we're also moving from physical distribution of products to digital distribution. And so when you do that, when you look at that structural approach to design, you strip away the extraneous product features and things like that. You get back to the core utility. So in retail banking, you get back to the ability to safely store money, the ability to move money, and the ability to access credit when and where you need it. So you don't need a credit card in the future. You don't need a plastic card. You don't need the 16-digit number. You just need to be able to provide access to credit in a use case or scenario where customer doesn't have the cash. So ultimately what happens is you strip away that product structure and you deliver the pure utility that really is underlying the relationship the customer has with the bank.
For us at DBS, it's really about customer journey. And so trying to work out, you know, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, yes, today I'm going to do a mortgage. No, they you know, it's like we saw in the video, they've had children, they need shelter, they need protection, and just solving that problem in the right way and trying to make banking more kind of friction-free, as Brett said. But, you know, we're still in this kind of time in history that we try and map one product to, like, you know, 10 million client, whether that's an app as a tech product or, you know, whether it's a card or a lending product. And so getting that kind of fluidity inside the product manufacturing process is going to take a lot of time. But, you know, my guidance is that I really want to move to Brett's world, but there's still, you know, all our IT, all our process, all our people are kind of product aligned. And so I think a good first step is just hide and mask that kind of complexity and maybe that kind of, you know, product segmentation from the client with kind of new front-end customer journey-based experiences.
The future of this industry in terms of contextualizing banking, where banking should fit in your world, all comes down to data. And so open banking allows you to have portability or transparency of data so you can build those use cases, those data models, understand those scenarios where contextually, behaviorally, location-based, there's an opportunity to insert the bank to solve a problem. So really, you know, this is where these platforms that gather more and more payments data and what you do with your money and when you do it and what's the trigger for that are going to really have an advantage in the future in terms of competitiveness.
How do you see the evolution in a place like that, and how do you see it elsewhere?
What we are looking at this financial market, we think it's just the beginning. The millions of the people, billions of people, they are still under banking service without the finance service. So its market is growing. And from early days of the Alipay and financial, we definitely working very close with our banks. But sometimes, of course, the bank will feel not uncomfortable because it's the behavior and the collaborations is quite different compared to the traditional way.
How much data is too much for a bank to have, or for people to have? And when does having too much data push you into the tail? And once you're in the tail, which makes you uninsurable, or somebody who cannot get credit because that data essentially, from a predictive perspective, as Brett said, pushes you out into a position where you can't get anything, and how do we deal with that?
Well, that is the danger of digitization when we take humans out of a lot of these processes, is you just get seen as a correlation, and I think that's a great danger. I grew up in a very, quite a poor part of the UK. I use Facebook, just for friends I went to school with, and, they're not particularly creditworthy, most of them. So if you did a social score of me, it would come back very low. And so you have to be cognizant that we can't put everything into a box. We're trying to in the world. We're trying to digitize everything. We're trying to digitize animals. We've got videos of animals. That's good. Let's kill all wildlife. We've got this. We'll do that. So that's a huge process that we're doing at the moment, that we're replacing, the humanity in many ways with a digital kind of substitute, whether that's Facebook and Friends, whether that's LinkedIn and careers, or whether it's Google and intelligence. But I think that we always need that human interaction piece. We can't just be resolved to a load of ones and zeros, Because think of the first cameras. You take a photo of a beautiful analog scene, and it'll resolve it into quite big pixel squares. And then over time, we've got more pixels, and that's great. But we're still, in essence, turning something to analog and digital. Something may not fit in the box correctly. But I think from a finance organization, we have a certain, I'd say, reputation, but also, we have to also help the weaker people in society. We have to do good as we go through this process, I think. I mean, a simple thing, I thought the other day that the resider of financial knowledge in a country is with the banks. But where is the last person someone would go to learn about finance? A bank, because they're concerned they go there, they'll get sold to, there's fees, the advisor will want his cut. And so I think, banks really should start pivoting into how do you solve the financial happiness and financial needs of your clients. Because if you position into that, and then we look at maybe banks being moved more to the background, being a utility, then you still have that connection with your client, and you're there to help solve that.
How do you think about identity? It's been a big topic here in the conference as well. How do you think about identity and how it solves some of these issues?
Well, on a simple basis, I think the way we've thought about identity here, like take Australia, we have this 100-point system, right? So if you come in and you want to open a bank account, you've got to get 100 points. You have to produce a driver's license, a passport, and you build up this profile based on data. But most of that data is not securable anymore in terms of your date of birth, your address, that sort of stuff. It shouldn't be used to uniquely identify you because it's publicly available information. And an identity document, let's take a driver's license. Think out, 20 years' time with autonomous vehicles. Who's going to need a driver's license to get around? So we have to start thinking about identity in different ways. And that is, what makes you unique? And sure, it is biometrics, facial recognition, voice, and things like that. But more importantly, we're finding out behavior is an incredibly powerful identifier. So with blockchain and these other ecosystems we're creating for identity rails, things like zero-proof models and so forth will allow us to build progressive models. And this is where trusted partners, banks, technology players can participate in this together in terms of bringing this key identity data together.
You have a lot of people here, and I was going to ask you, what would your advice be to them based on the themes that we talked about today, right? Based on this concept of this changing environment, the fact that I think it's an absolute reality that the FANGs and others are going to aggressively get into this industry, become distributors of financial services, whether it's through marketplaces, white labeling, however they do it. What would your advice be?
So step one, understand that every product in your wheelhouse is going to become an experience you deliver in real time without a physical signature or presence. That's who you're going to be competing against, the likes of Ant Financial, who can already do that. So that's your baseline competency. And then who are the partners you need in terms of platform and data to be able to contextually do that very well?
Neil?
One, lose your ego, or at least reduce it, make new friends, new partnerships. Your greatest asset is your staff. Look after your customers and run quickly.
Jane?
I think partnership will be the the key point in the next 3 or 5 years and even longer, because we think the digital finance, this journey is just at the beginning. So it's more like we need all the parties to come in and do their contributions. So for Ant Financial itself, we would like to open and collaborations and share our technologies with all the persons. The other thing is the purpose, don't forget the purpose. The original purpose is to deliver something affordable and accessible, the financial service to everyone. This is our dream, and hopefully it can be the dream for all the banks together.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists who I think have been giving you some great insight. We hope you have taken something away from our crystal ball gazing exercise and will join us again next year. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists.
You're welcome.